Welcome back to Maintenance Made on a Budget. Today we're going to be pulling out this carpet and putting in some floor tile. Now the reason we decided to go with floor tile on this particular setup is that you have to consider when you're choosing floor, first it's the budget for sure. So whatever fits your budget. Hardwood floors are probably the most expensive, or tiles, depending on the type of tile that you go with, and then also laminate. So the friend that I'm helping doing this said that they wanted to have a laminate flooring. However, when you do a laminate flooring, and I've already started pulling up the carpet here, but you have to consider the trim. So you've got a gap here. Now, if you're going to do a laminate flooring, it's in like planks, pieces, and depending on the type of a laminate you buy, some of the laminate may come with under plastic lining. That's a moisture barrier, or you may have to lay it. But either case, the laminate piece is probably going to end up sticking above the trim. So you're going to have to pull all the trim out. Now, they didn't like that option because we're going to be doing the entire house. I'm only going to be showing part of just this room, but there's a lot of trim that's going to have to come out. And as you can see, this trim is really well seated. It's like nailed and glued, it appears. So we can go ahead and pull all the trim out. If you're going to do that, be very careful. We're not going to do that. So we're going to go with, we decided to go with tile, because with tile, we can butt it up to here and then just fill in the gap. Okay, so now we've got everything clean. We scraped everything off. Had to scrape a lot of this glue from the carpet. So that took about a full day of doing all of that. And after all that was done, swept it up and then mopped with water 3 times just to make sure everything's off the floor, because we want to keep it as flat as possible. So now we're at the point where you try to decide how to lay this out. There's plenty of videos on how to do that. Essentially, you got to find a square where you're going to start your tiles. Wherever section of the room is square. But in my case, that is very hard to find because no corner is a true square at all. So what I ended up doing, and then the key thing is you have to look at what the main focal point of your room is. If it's a bathroom, if it's a living room, whatever. You know, if you're in a bathroom, you're probably most likely going to tile from the bathtub out and start a square site that way. In any event, in this particular case, the main door is right here. So we're going to have to go and start from this front door so that when you walk in, everything looks nice and even. So the only way to do that, I'm working with 7x20 tiles. They kind of look like wood planks. So our challenge was trying to find how to come out even where you don't have a sliver, where you end up tiling here and then it gets narrower and closer to the wall as you go, and it'll look like trash. So we had that to deal with. I measured wall to wall, tried to find a middle, and I was thinking of maybe starting in the middle and tiling to the wall, but then I would run into an issue where it would come along straight here, and then as I tiled, it would get sloppy towards the door entrance. And I didn't want that because this is going to be the main focal point, you know, first thing you see when you come in. So what we decided, my point is, you really got to put a lot of time and attention to figure out how you're going to start your first set of tile and what pattern you're going to do. But before I get into that, I just want to make sure that we cover the fact that typically you're going to find the square. If you're just doing a basic square room and mark it, and then you can start from the middle and work your way that way. But now when I did that, I just laid these tiles out. And when I kept laying them out, I was coming off way too far on here than I was on there. So if you got your middle line, you can move the tile in the center of the line and then just work it to where it'll be even on either side, right? So I tried all kinds of different ways. I thought maybe I would start here, put a mark, and then start laying my tiles, but then I was going to come up too close to this side and too far away from that side. And I didn't want to end up losing a lot of tiles. So what I ended up doing for this particular layout is I found my square somewhat here, right? I'm going to start from here so that the tile's going to end up coming out to here, and I'll line up my next first row on that side. So I'll have to do half cuts all the way along that edge, but all throughout the main majority of the wall, it'll be full tiles. So that would be my first tile. And then the next one, as I run it down that way, run it back to here, and I'm going to keep running it back and forth like that. You'll see. And back and forth, all the way down, all the way back. And then I'll mark it at the same here. It's exactly 4.5 inches from this side and this side. So my whole centerpiece will be nice and flowing evenly through up to this wall and extend out through the hallway. And that's really the best way I could do it, because again, if you're coming in through here, as you come in through the house, everything along this wall will be nice and clean, because as I go long ways of the tile, I'll be able to cut and make it even throughout the wall, and then start the next pattern and then start laying it that way. So as the person comes in, it's going to look clean, and you're not going to see any craziness. And then as you come in here, this whole section will be nice and even, with just a little bit of on that edge that would have to be cut, and on that edge. But I had to do the same, and it just so happens to work out that way as I lay each tile from the main door. So as we start tiling, it's going to go like that, right? And then I ended up having that much extension out. The other thing I could have done is, instead of having that much overlay from this next wall, from this room, I could have made up that difference here and cut that and make the tile up. But again, this is the first thing you see when you enter the home, and we want this to be as clean as possible. So a lot goes into planning these tiles. Now, the things you're going to need to do that is a chalk. I also have a laser, measuring tape. Then you need your trowel. Standard trowel is going to be 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch marks. This tool here is going to be very important. This is not my first tiling job, but I am not a professional tiler. So all my other tiling jobs, I would put the tile in, and as you press the tile down, you get a little bit of squirt, it'll squeeze out through the sides, and then I always just wipe it with a sponge and move on. But it always gets messy. This tool, as I'll show later, as I lay these tiles in, you're going to use to clean the edge, and that'll help prevent the cleanup much, much better. Definitely invest in one of these if you're going to do a big job like this. It's well worth the money. Spacers, I'm going to go with a leveling system on this floor, just because I want to make sure like I said, I'm not a professional, so I want to make sure I get every tool that's going to make me do it right that I can. So the way this particular leveler is a lash system, or I don't know what they call it. They're just leveling clips. So you'll have, let's see if I have this one open. Let's see. You'll have a clip here. I'll show them as I go, but basically you have the yellow clip here, and it slides in, goes like that. You'll slide the yellow thing through here, and you just tap it, and it pulls these two tiles, and it keeps it level. And then after it dries, you just kick them off. I'm going to use them because I want to help do the best job that I can. As far as the type of tile, we're going with a porcelain tile from Home Depot. This is a 7 by 20 but the actual measurements are just under 7 and just under 20 inches. The thing to do with these is you want to set up your pattern. So since I'm starting here, I'm laying out all my pieces using my spacers, right? Boom, 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 boom. My first cut is going to be right here. And then I'm going to use that piece to start the next row. With these type of tiles, from what I can tell, they recommend not going anything less than 5 inches from the other tile when you're going to the next row. So it would be, you measure out your 5 inches, but you don't want to be exactly in the middle. So somewhere between no less than 5 inches, but no more than 50% of the next row. And that's because these longer pieces, especially the longer tiles, these may not be so bad, but they still are a little bit longer. They have a tendency to have a natural bowing, like as if it was a real wood plank, you know, and it would kind of bow up like that. So as you lay them, if you did a brick pattern where you do something like that right in the middle, there could be a greater potential, especially as you start running it all the way down. The potential for trip hazard is more extreme. So what you got to do to prevent that is lay it like that. If I was starting from this tile, going into here, and then maybe the next one would be like that, something along those lines. And you can kind of try to stagger it a little bit as you go, but something like that. So less than 50, or less than 5, no less than 5 inches from the edge, and no more than 50, you know, in the middle or more. So something along those lines there. Another quick comment: if you got a lot of the door ledges like I do, you definitely want to invest in one of these, and then it goes much quicker. It's an oscillating handheld isolator that you'll type in, you'll plug in, and it just, you set your tile down, mark above the tile, do a couple little baby cuts, take the tile away, and then cut in. And boy, this thing really makes it work. And then just wanted to go over real quick on some of these tile cuts that I did. I'll put my tile piece here, and you can, you know, mark it, measure from here and here, and use your 90-degree angle ruler and make your lines. What I also do is I get a piece of cardboard from the box, just whatever's left over, and it matches the tile width. And I'll go in here, and then I'll draw a pencil, or I'll cut it, and I'll make myself a template, and I'll put that template right on top of the tile and trace it. And then I'll put the tile back and see how far off I am on my measurement. And that seems to help me. It does take longer, but again, this video is for do-it-yourselfers. So, you know, if you're not always accurate with the ruler and hard to see the little dots and lines on your rulers, this is just one of the tips I use. I always use a cardboard template. Same thing when I'm coming up short on a wall and I need to cut another tile. I'll just measure what I need, mark it, then I trace that on top of the tile, and then I'll put the tile there and double check it again before I make my actual cut. And that saved me a lot of bad cut mistakes. Just a little tip for someone who doesn't tile every day. Another tool you'll need to have is a square. And when you're doing your marks, I've put my spacers in, and I'm also leaving a slight gap, maybe, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch or so, just a slight gap along the trim. So you have to take into account for that in your spacer when you're doing your marks. But you'll definitely want to have a nice square and a pencil when you mark and cut. But again, when you come into these corners, I'm accounting for my gap here on my measurement, and also the gap here. And if I'm a little off, it's okay, because you can fill in with grout and kind of hide the imperfections. But the reason I don't just slide the tile under this is because it's not going to work like that because the floor is not truly level. Like as you can see here, I'm not going to be able to get the tiles to slide under there unless I ripped, like I said earlier in the video, I ripped out all the trim. So I'm starting off with all my measurements, like having the gap between the wall and the tile. And then as I'm grouting, I'll fill in all the grout on the edges and it'll come out clean. But just wanted to throw that out there real quick. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started with my cuts. Just want to show how I cut my tiles. I got my wet saw here, and you make your mark. When I measured the tile, this would have been the wall here, and then this side would have been my other end tile. So normally I'll make a mark like this, right? Or on this side. That's just going to tell me that I want my blade to line up on the left side of my line. So I'll probably come over a little bit, and that way it will be perfect to my measurement when I'm cutting. If I go right on the line, or if I go too far that way, if I go too far that way, it'll be too short. So if I measured from this side to my wall, then I need to cut on this side of the line. All right, so that last piece was right here. So I slid it in, and my spacer on the edge here, and then I had that gap. So when I measured it, I marked a full tile, but I made sure to cut the blade on this side so that I'll have that gap when I cut. So just be aware of that as you're cutting. And here's the final layout. Now, I went overboard as far as labeling everything, but this is the first part. So I want to make sure I have it right. And one of the things I never used to do before is I would just kind of lay it out, find my square, and start going and mixing my mortar as I went. And usually it was okay, but this is a much more controlled way of doing it, where I take the time, I get every cut how I can get it to fit, mark it, and get it all laid out. Now I'm going to stack these up, starting from this tile, stack them all up, set them to the side, and I'm going to go back to number one. My particular way I did it is I started from left to right. I tried to keep it within that 6-inch rule. And you'll see that it will start, if you keep going from left to right, left to right, left to right, 6 inches, 6 inches, whatever, you'll start to get a stair pattern. So when I come opening up to out in the big room here, I'm going to go 6 inch, 6 inch, 6 inch, 6 inch, and then come back this way, 6 inch, 6 inch, 6, so it offsets. And you'll end up coming with one line, one line, one line, like that. And then okay, so we're gonna show you real quick how I mix my cement mortar. First, you need a good heavy duty drill, low torque or high torque drill. Trust me, you want to get a good drill if you're going to be doing a lot of mixing. And what we're going to do first, I'm going to be using is going to be Versabon. This is a pre-mix, has a hardening like a agent mixed with it. You can also buy this separately with the liquid form of the bonding agent, but since I'm doing so much, this is the more economic way to go. Every bag, depending on what you buy, is going to have the directions on the back. So what I did is I figured out how much water I need by the directions, converted it to cups, and then I just marked, can't even see anymore, I marked my bucket right here. So I know every time I have to fill up my water to that. And then I just add one full bag. Now for this particular mix, I just need a small amount to finish up what I'm doing. But you guys get the idea. So then you'll just dump this in there. It's going to get very messy. And you just start mixing. like I said, if you fill up your mark every time, you won't have this issue, but because I'm only wanting a little bit, I gotta kind of estimate it. It's easy when I got everything measured. More water. Okay, what you're looking for is a real nice, thick, sticky peanut butter. Okay, I had to add water because I'm just trying to make a small amount, but if you do it, mark off your water and mark the bucket and just fill to that line every time, you'll have it easier. Temperature has a big effect on how this stuff comes out. On the hotter days, this gets pretty thick and starts to dry pretty quick. So if you're making full buckets, make sure you're prepared to get through the day. And today it's a little overcast, so this is going to be a little bit. But anyway, you'll mix it to like that, and then depending on the bag, this bag says let it stand for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll come back and mix one more time, and I'll get to use. That's how you mix your cement. Okay, so I started from the door. And I just wanted to show you guys how I'm doing it. So the leveling system, when you're putting down these tiles, you've got basically you want to go about 2.5 inches to 2 inches from each corner of joints to keep the lippage down. And then I go behind with my level and just watching the bubble in the middle, slide it down. You know, you can tap it, make sure it's level, and we're good there. And then I'll go like this. Still got good, and the bubble's still good. And that's kind of how you go. Now, when you're getting ready, you get your mix down there, and then you kind of just, any random way you want to do it to start getting the base evened out. Some pieces that run over. But essentially, all right. We're gonna go like this, right? Once you're ready, then you'll come back and do nice even lines. All the way. Okay. And just go like that. So, scoop it up, plop it down. All right. And you kind of just break it, distribute it. And then right when you're ready, come back, go one direction. So all your ridges can collapse. Okay. Now I've decided my tiles, I'm not back buttering. Only because with the back buttering, I'm not a professional, so it's very sloppy, it's very hard to maintain, and it takes me a long time to do it. So what I'm going to do is place the tile right down on that. I always do it that way. If these were bigger tiles, the bigger base rod, I would definitely back butter. What back buttering, you just put one coat on the back, like that, and slap it down. Okay, But like I said, for this particular application, and I'm going extra heavy, thick on my floor cement. Then what you do with this system here is, if I have a little tile like this, I kind of just still keep it within 1.5 inches from the edge there. Oh, and before I do that, I gotta use your, go right along like that. And by doing this, it'll help prevent any squeeze up when you press the tile down. And see, it also helps you kind of see what you've got going. Right in this area, I'll have to add some more. So I'm gonna just lay this tile down so you can see, but generally I'll lay out a whole roll and then just go tile, tile, tile. That'll help with speed. So you can kind of see, like I said, here I'll have to add some more, here I'll have to add some more and make it down. But, just for the purpose of the video, you go back, you want to trowel the edge like that. And then stick in this edge, 1.5 to 2 inches, just on every meeting corner. And this will help get everything level for you. I like it. It helps. It definitely helps. You don't have to be as focused when you're leveling it out. Now, again, with the tiling, my arrow, I want to make sure, again, my arrow is pointing in the same direction. Another reason I decided not to back butter is because as I back butter, I'll start forgetting which side was the arrow and I'll have to wipe it off. And it's just, for such a big project that I have, I'm going with just one application. So, and you'll just get it up like that. And because this one's here, I'll probably stick one more in there. I'm overkilling it because I want to make sure, let me get it right. And then you just press back and forward again. Maybe a little wiggle. Okay. And then I'll get my trowel again if I can find it. A nice damp sponge. And I'll just clean as I go, like that. Help that space. Like it. Very messy doing flooring. And if you're not up for the flooring, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Because it's messy. But once you get your rhythm down, and I still haven't really gotten the rhythm yet, I'm starting to get a little faster today. Yesterday I did what you see here by the door. And it just got so late that I had to stop. So once you're there, then you'll start your level. Good. So it's still even with that floor. I'll go ahead and put in my clips. You just slide them in with the ridge side up. Clamp it down. They do have pliers that you can use, but I don't tile every day. I'll slide this one a little more in. Matter of fact, I probably won't be tiling for a long time after this. It's a labor intense job here. There we go. Okay. Now for the next setup, I'll put one here, and lay the next one. And before you do that, make sure you clean up the edge here the same way so that nothing squeezes up on that. And then I'll put the next one down. That's how I do it. You keep going, make sure to keep leveling and checking yourself as you go. You know, making sure it's level this way. And you should have no problem. And then you always want to pop one tile up, and you want to make sure you have at least 85% coverage. I popped up 2 tiles up there, and I had about 75 to 85% coverage just with one coat on the floor, not doing the back butter, and it works out fine. But leave that up to you. Most people recommend back buttering, but for me, it just takes so much time with this awkward sized tile. Not only that, but keeping the direction of the grain. If you have a regular pattern ceramic tile that you're not trying to match wood grain, I would definitely back butter, because you don't care what arrow is pointing where. You're just going to match up your brick pattern or your step pattern. But in this case, I have to make sure that my wood grain is going with the flow of the arrow. So back buttering it, as I tried up there, just was very problematic. And it took a lot more time because sometimes I would forget which way the arrow was going. I had to go back and clean the back part of the cement off. So to compensate, I'm just going a little bit heavier on my marks here, and it'll work. So we'll go ahead and finish up. Okay. All right, I'm at the halfway point, or a little bit over the halfway point, and I just wanted to show real quick. If you're going to stop in the middle, which I'm averaging about 4 to 5 rows every day for what I'm doing. And it helps to still get in and out of the door. This will dry. This VersaBond mix dries pretty decently quick, within just a couple hours. But I give it a full 24 hours before I walk and do anything. So tomorrow I'll come in, kick all these off. Another tool that you're going to need here. I can't find what I do with it. Shoot. Oh, here it is. Come in after you kick all these out and run your clean. It's just a grout scraper. But only really need to get is the spots that were, because you'll get some will squeeze up and get kind of clumped up in there. They kick off very easily. Some of them kind of get stuck. Just grab some pliers and twist them off, and then you'll have to go back and clean it out with that. But the one thing I wanted to show real quick, if you're going to stop at a halfway point, is make sure you get your next set of spacers in before you walk away for the day, because the next day this will be hard and you won't be able to get one in there and continue the next row. So yeah, just remember that. And we'll continue on, and then I'll show the final. Well, after all this is in, we're going to come through and scrape all the grout lines out, and then we'll fill in the grout with, I'll do the caulking grout. They match the color to the particular grout that you want. In this case, we're going to be using oyster gray, and the grout mix is also oyster gray. But what you'll do with this is go in and fill all the little gaps on the wall. And what you want to have is something like that. Just a little bit of maybe 3/8 of an inch or whatever. And you'll fill it all nice and in. But you want to leave the space between the walls for expansion and contraction. Also, I had my tiles sitting at least a day prior to me pulling them and setting them on the concrete. The particular tile that I'm using, just in case you're wondering, is the duttonwood ash ceramic floor wall tile from Traffic Master. That's the towel we're using. All right, so once I get the rest of this room laid in with tile, we'll show you how we do the caulking. Okay, so we got everything cleaned up, mopped and swept and cleaned all the grout lines. And now we're gonna start doing along the trim. So you can get ceramic tile caulk, and just make sure you match the same color as your grout mixture. And we're gonna go ahead and do this. So you just go along the edge and then just squeeze it all along the end lines. And this will make a nice smooth finish. And then you'll have to go behind and start to wipe it smooth with a sponge in some of the areas. But that's what you gotta do. I like to do this first, and then after a day, I'll come in tomorrow and do all the grout in the middle. The reason this is good is when you're grouting these lines close to the wall, you don't have to worry about getting in there. Just do up to here, as you'll see when I do that part. But this keeps it nice and clean. And then you can go behind with a wet sponge and just kind of wipe everything down all the way. And then we'll go ahead and finish all around the room. Okay, so we've cleaned up everything and closed out all the grout marks, and now we're ready. Finished up around the edges, and now we're ready to do the actual tops. So what I'm using for that is this Poly Blend. It's just a grout that I decided to go with, and the color is oyster gray. So we'll match that up. The way you mix it is kind of the same as the cement. They just say you add, I think it was 6 liters, no, 2 quarts. You add 2 quarts of water, then you add the whole bag. If you're going with this, just read the directions. They're right there. I will say again, the temperature matters. I went with the directions and I emptied the whole bag, and you're gonna have to add a little bit more water. They do say that. And then there's a process. You let it sit for 5 minutes, mix it again, and you're ready to go. And the cement for the tiles is kind of the same. So for this, when you get ready to do that, you're gonna need some type of a trowel if you want, or this type of tool here, where you're gonna spread it out and pack it in between all the grooves. So we'll get ready to do that. Essentially, you just pick the corner you're gonna start with, scoop it up, and it's like a pasty substance, and just start working it in. Just like that. And try to keep it as clean as you possibly can, but this is the definitely messiest part. And then I'll come back behind and try to scoop everything that didn't get pressed in. Just keep in mind, once you get all this done, I think the bag says to let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes. I'm not sure the timeline. It's on the bag instructions. Then you'll come back and start wiping it out with a sponge. But what I'm going to do, and what I'm trying to get at is try not to leave big massive chunks as you go, like I'm doing here, but you'll see in a minute. So I'm going to keep working it, go along. And now the benefit of doing the edge first is I can just go right up to the edge like that and not make too much of a mess on my trim, just like that. I don't even have to worry about getting the trim because I already did it with the caulking. So, but like for this, try to get as much of that up as you can, because that's all the stuff you're going to have to mop at the end. Okay, and I can even use this tool to come back just lightly, kind of just go like that, kind of clean up your mess. Okay, and that's how I'm doing this. And then just keep working it as you move forward. Just keep pressing it in. Like that. Trying to use everything that I've got. Just like that. And then I'll come behind. That's how I do it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but like I said, I'm not a professional. This is how I'm doing it. Point is, get them all filled in, and then you're going to wait 5 minutes. So, and then I'll come back and start wiping off with the sponge. And then I believe you have to wait another, I think it said 2 to 3 to 6 hours, something like that. And then you can wipe it all off. And then it says after that, you got to let it sit for 16 hours, I believe. And then, so probably I'll come back the next day and use hot water and vinegar, or hot water with vinegar, and I'll clean up everything before we put our final sealant. Okay, this is the final product. So after you get them all the grout in, I just cleaned everything with hot water, vinegar. I must have mopped it probably a total of like 4 times. And voila. So the last step I got to do is put tile sealer. There's different things you can do. You can put a grout sealer, and they have little like tubes that will have a wheel and just roll along the grout marks, and then go back and do tile sealer. I'm just going the more economic way and just putting a grout and sealer tile protectant, and that's just to be more cost effective. And since we have such a large floor, and this is just one room, we're doing 4 other rooms here, so going economic. But anyways, you'll put the tile sealer on there and just follow the directions. But not bad. You know, if you guys want to save money, you can do it yourself. A couple of tips is try to clean as you go when you're putting the tiles down. And just take your time. And when mixing, start off your mixes with the directions, but when it comes to the grout, I had to add more water, and I had to keep adding it because the grout, for some reason, just kept getting really powdery on me. I mean, it'd get nice and mixed, I'd let it sit for 5 minutes, and I'd start grouting, but then it just started to dry up fast. I don't know if that's got something to do with my area that I'm in, but it worked. You just had to go back and add a little bit of water to get it workable. But in the end, we probably saved close to $8,000 just in labor cost to do this room. So can be done. If you like the video, please hit the subscribe to my channel. Leave comments below, and thanks for tuning in. See you guys next time.